Welcome to Harbor Spaces, where refuge meets community. Harbor Spaces is more than just a name. It's a sanctuary, a place of shelter, safety, and belonging. It's where we come to anchor ourselves, reflect deeply, and reconnect with what truly matters. Inspired by the rhythm of nature and the ever-flowing waters, Harbor Spaces offers a grounding presence in a fast-moving world. Here, we revive the lost art of community, communication, cooperation, and collaboration. This is a space for seekers, those who long for peace, purpose, and authentic connection. So take a deep breath, settle in, and welcome home. This is Harbor Spaces. Today, our guest is Mary Beth Kline. Mary Beth works for the Alpena Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. She is a kind, caring human, an exceptional mother, creative artist, eloquent writer and poet, an articulate photographer, and a modern pioneer of sustainable, independent living. She studied at Alpena Community College, Michigan State University, and George Washington University, earning a degree in journalism, communications, psychology, and a certification in sustainable tourism management. And Mary Beth was born in Kentucky, but moved to Alpena at a very early age, where she has stayed and called it her home ever since. Mary Beth has a deep connection and love for the health and sustainability of the economy and the abundant natural resources in this area. Her passion for nature has positioned her as an advocate, host, and facilitator of numerous journalism articles, films, and expeditions held within the region. Her connection to Rockport runs deep, as it was her who worked to obtain the dark sky preservation. She brought awareness to the park by helping start the Rockport Rugged Triathlon, which finally got the trails mapped and marked. She has helped host events at the park like Meteors and S'mores, which attracted 94% of participants from outside of the region. She facilitated a Make-Your-Wish trip for a young girl and her family, and even hosted an 8th grade graduation trip for a school from Grand Rapids. She is continuously exposing the beauty of this area to those that do not have the accessibility like we have to such glorious places. In her personal time, she enjoys connecting with nature at her home, fossil hunting, exploring sinkholes, admiring lighthouses, hiking forest trails, stargazing at dark sky preserves, or relaxing at the many parks and beaches the area has to offer. This brings us to why Mary Beth is joining us here today. As many of you may have heard, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources has proposed a significant site development at Rockport Recreational Area, our cherished state park and dark sky preserve. As an advocate for Rockport, Mary Beth is here to shed light on the pros and cons of the proposed development. Here on Harbor Spaces podcast, our goal is to remain non-biased while providing knowledge and understanding about the developments and areas of concern that impact our community. By doing so, we hope to empower informed, collaborative decisions about the health and longevity of our economy, natural resources, and the future city we will be leaving for our children to love and enjoy. Mary Beth, thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, awesome. So, I just gave an introduction of who you are, but in your own words, would you tell us who you are and visions you see yourself here in Alpena?
Parents grew up here, the exception of a couple of years when my dad was in the Army and I did a writing program in Ireland. I've spent the rest of the time here. Most of that time has been spent outside. So I grew up on a farm, but in the west of Alpena, and I now live on my grandparents' farm where my dad grew up and my grandpa was born. And so caring for the environment and the land it's been up here is common and as part of my life as making sure you brush your teeth every day. Nice. The rest, I often find myself, if I'm having a rough day about something, a walk in the woods takes care of it. And as I've gotten older, I've started to look at, not just porn. It's nice to be outside, but like, what are the elements and how are we interacting with nature? And trees give off certain chemicals that interact with our bodies that can benefit us in every day. In Japan, they even recommend, as a prescription before you start taking depression medication or blood pressure pills, like, go for a walk 20 minutes a day for this amount of time.
Absolutely.
And it often can like help alleviate or lower some problems. So there's a lot more to our environmental surroundings than I think that we've been taught. How are we're even aware of? Because we don't speak tree.
Right.
With there's something to it. We know that when we're walking along the shoreline, like the beautiful Lake Huron that I can see out here, we feel better for some reason. Or you start science behind it. There's ion transfer and pills. There is a reason why that is. But this amount, just on the surface, I just love being able to call this place home, where it feels like even in the middle of town, you're still embraced by forests and lakes and rivers. We have a really unique community. And Rockport is, I think, in my opinion, one of the most unique state parks that Michigan has to offer. So we really are blessed in this area. Behind it, not really talking about meal. That's talking about trees a lot.
That just expands your connection with nature, and I love that about you.
Yeah, I like being able to raise a family here. Kids, we have gone on adventure excursions. Little, I would tell them, you need to pack a swimsuit, a towel. I've got snacks, and a couple floaties, and then I drive them to a beach. We have so many, they wouldn't know which ones we were going to. So we were a trail hike or a bike ride together, and it's just fun to have so much that you can share with younger generations, and also help them understand what it means to be a steward of the land. Because if we're going to take up space on the land, we need to be stewards. And that's part of my upbringing. It's part of my value system. It's kind of just ingrained in me to constantly look at kind of the husbandry of wild animals, drive care of, what are we putting on agriculture crops, and is that safe for everybody? Yeah. Hike or kind of all and melds in my life in certain ways that, live on a farm and I take nature walks. I built some trails on the land through some old pine that my uncle planted. And I think that if I could, I guess, boil down who I am, it's part of just a nature-based person living in a modern world.
Beautiful. Appreciate that. Thank you. And you work for the CVB, yes?
Yeah.
So could you just go into a little bit about what that is and what your role is there?
Washington Visitors Bureau is the official tourism entity, safe nation management organization for the Alpena County and surrounding area. And our job at the office is to make nature, introduce people. The main thing is to bring economic development to the region. So introduce people that have never heard of Alpena or the Alpena region, and let them know what our assets are that they might be interested in, which are a lot of the reasons why we like living here. So, fishing and lakes, you're never more than like 7 minutes from a body of water. Trails, we have over 100 miles of groomed trails, over 1,000 miles of shoreline between not only the big lake, but our inland lakes and the river system. Visitors, we don't have to create or invent anything to persuade people to come here. We try and line up what we have. We call it like our asset portfolio. And lighthouses in the region, 3 dark sky preserves. There's a lot. And we look to identify audiences that are looking for that kind of experience. Alpena metro areas are getting more populated all the time. Which I didn't know this until we started talking about our dark sky parks. I didn't know that there are whole generations of children that don't see a night sky that is unobstructed by city lights. I just, living here, we're so spoiled. Even out here, you're in town, you can see the constellations.
Absolutely.
Like that really gives me a lot of passion to want to introduce people to, what is possible in terms of finding a place that is quiet, that has room to breathe. Come here, breathing out of your chest, that fight or flight, like everything's got a deadline and everything is stressful, to like breathe with the sound of the waves when you're here and We have all the modern conveniences that people are used to, like they can go get coffee or lunch downtown but the array of area outdoor experiences that we have is really unmatched. And my job is just to find people who are looking for that. So in a basic sense, what I do is marketing. But in the bigger sense, what I do is city office tries to, and I have a great team, Nicole and Joellen. We seek to introduce people to what we have living here. Yeah. And a lot of times we'll bring in me journalists, either writers or photographers that work for national publications. Find ad, under the radar here a number of times. TV shows have been filmed here. And it's interesting because the content that they want to capture, they're always blown away because they get more than what they thought they were going to get. But themselves have an experience. And a lot of them have come back more than once. Yeah. Can go there, it's on their own, or but come for more coverage of something. So that's the main thing that we do here. We promote the area to bring in economic development in the form of tourism, so that restaurants have more customers, and that leads to insurance companies having more business because now they have a restaurant that needs insurance. So it really kind of filters out. But it's not like a factory. You can't drive past it and tourism production's really good this week. It's really dispersed. It kind of happens quietly. In the summertime, that's our high season. You can tell that more people are here. Are also experiencing visitors coming this time of year in winter. So yeah. It's really all year round here. On the other side of that is protecting what we have. The last few years, we really have thought the Visitors Bureau Board of Directors has allowed us to give back a certain amount of money. This year, we're putting $50,000 toward nonprofit or more entities or projects in the area that would benefit the visitor economy, but really also benefit us as community members too, as residents. So some of the things we did last year with that, the reinvestment in our infrastructure, we gave the it really parsed out but it oversees the sinkholes out off of Lear Road. Okay. We gave them some money and they were able to redo their parking lots and make them safer. So just little things like that the wear and tear of people leaves a footprint on the earth. And if nobody's paying attention to that or being mindful and trying to help keep up with that, you're not going to have these beautiful assets that we love protecting.
And that you've brought many people into the area. Could you maybe give us one story pertaining to Rockport itself as to a film crew or a real fun time that you had out there exposing Rockport to somebody who had never seen it before?
Oh, sure. Had the guys from Under the Radar or on PBS, yeah. A number of times, but this particular time, so it's really funny, as people are allowed to take up to 25 pounds of fossils home with them. Wow. When they go. And there are so many people, don't believe me, you will trip over fossils. And often when I take people out, after about a half an hour, they're like, oh, you weren't kidding. You were not kidding. I'm like, no, they're everywhere. So Jim, one of the A members, found this rock he just loved. It was a little bit heavy and he didn't want to carry it back to the parking lot. Part of what we filmed was bike riding. So he took my bike and put the rock on the bike and pushed it all the way back he still has it in his garden. So it's just really fun for me to see how people, because sometimes I think well, I love fossils, but I don't know that everyone else loves fossils as much as I do. And when someone comes and they have an experience like that, it's just, the place touched them and they're taking that experience home with them. The same thing with the group from Grand Rapids who selected Rockport as their 8th grade graduating trip.
That is amazing.
Yeah, they voted. They voted different places in Michigan and they wanted to go rock picking at Rockport.
That says something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So Mary Beth, could you tell us why, not why you're in Alpena, but why such a connection? Why have you stayed? What do you feel is keeping you here in the area? And why do you have such a love for
rock? I think it just keeps healing me over and over again. I had an interesting life and I've gone through some really difficult, challenging times. Every time this nature has somehow played a role in helping me find my balance again. Just there's a spot out by where I live, where I grew up, Maple Ridge Township Park. It's a little spot on the river. As my mother passed away, and on the way to the cemetery, I voted to stop there and put my feet in the water. There are these beautiful, something protected, they're emerald green dragonflies.
Beautiful.
I remember the scientific name, but they were everywhere, and I had never seen that. And it was just a moment that I'll never forget. I picked some flowers for my grandma. Felt like I could carry on after that. I don't know what happened there. It was definitely some sort of spiritual experience. But I have a lot of things like that where it's somehow the land is given back to me.
Yeah.
And I can't think of raising our kids in any other place. Not fully protected from the world, but we're definitely insulated in a way that makes life a little bit easier here. And I used to be like in college, I thought, well, I'm going to go work in a big city and eventually I'll find somebody to marry. And then when we have children, we'll come back and raise them here, hopefully. And I did everything backwards. I had back surgery a couple weeks before I graduated college. So I came back and started working again here, and then met someone, and then we had our children. And so it didn't happen the way that I thought it would, but it happened. And I don't regret any part of it. And actually, I'm looking at these trees right now out here. There's a series of 3 trees, and even that brings memories. I remember in 3rd grade, just had a crush on a boy in school, and I sat under those trees when they were much smaller on the edge of the water, and I wrote his name on a rock and I threw it into the water. And I was just recently telling a friend about that because she had a picture of those trees that she had taken. And I'm like, I remember those trees. We have a history. So it's kind of like everywhere I go, there's places like that. Like, oh, I remember that trail. And when I walked that, or when I, our way to celebrate sometimes is to go out in nature and go on an adventure. Definitely. But I also am able to be employed here and work that I enjoy. And kids have great friends and family is around. So there's a lot that keeps me here. I don't know if anybody believes in astrocartography, but I have a line that runs right through Alpena from the I just discovered. I'm like, oh, that makes sense a little bit.
Excellent. So, what would you say that your purpose for being here, both as a human and as a good human, a steward for Alpena itself? What would you say that your purpose is for being
back? I'm a bridge builder and a connector. I often find myself in situations where there's like, for example, I remember working at the hospital and being in meetings where it was like, these people are saying this and these people are saying this, but they're not speaking the same language. They're not using the same definition. So there's like a disconnect with like getting to the final goal. And I just remember even when I was young, just listening. I used to observe and listen a lot because I was super shy. The water taught me a lot about communication, but then just knowing like where I can fit in and maybe like help bridge the gap a little. And I was recently talking with my brother and he like reiterated that kind of same thing in a different way. And I was like, oh, okay, yes, I guess I can accept that about myself. It's something that's good.
Beautiful. Thank you. As the development inevitable in this area, what do you think the value is in protecting our natural resources?
I don't know that I have a word that can fully encapsulate how important I think it is to protect our natural spaces. But part of what my professional job is, in addition to trying to introduce people to what we have here, is protecting what people are finding here. For example, Rockport State Recreation Area is the #1 park visited in the area. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't be the same community. It is our identity. Everything else is just for human sake. When we're talking about development and bringing things in, part of my certification process that I went through for that sustainable tourism management, it's called the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and the profit last. They're not, I'd even say planet, people, profit, depending on, what you're working in. If it's not good for the people, how are they going to take care of anything?
Right.
How are they going to, people need to be healthy. They need to be free to live their life according to how is best for them. And if something is going to destroy the land, the planet, if it's going to affect it, where are the people going to live? How are they going to be healthy? It can't just all be about profit. And that's not where things should start, according to this, this theory or this model that we like to follow. And it's not just about tourism, it's about everything. If you're thinking of opening a business, your people, how does it affect the planet? You're going to profit.
Yeah.
So, and I've written articles about it before, and I think that, it's kind of been glossed over. But if you have that as a foundation, then everything has a better, more solid framework to work from, so that when we're looking at development, we can say, like, how polluting is it? First off, what's it going to do to the environment? Is making $1 million off of this worth it if it means that this land is never going to be usable again and it's going to cause cancer in our population? Like, those things need to be at the forefront when we're thinking about development, in terms of wanting to maintain the beauty of what makes Alpena special and makes us want to be here and safe.
Yeah. And that the economy needs a little boost in this area. What sort of developments do you find are beneficial that need to come to the area?
It's interesting because I did an analysis of that for that program too. People know that a lot of people believe that manufacturing is going to save us. But I think that if we step back and take like a 150-year view of our community and how it started, we got to here, we need to do something different to get where we want to go next. We're finding out all the time that more and more land has been contaminated, sometimes unknowingly. People didn't know. I think there's a gap in the next stage of, like, okay, well, we know this and we know we're going to find more of this, so clean up. Like, there needs to be better access and better knowledge and better assistance regarding cleaning up the mistakes of the past, and then not repeating those same mistakes. So, follow. One of the things that I think our area would benefit from is, if you're an eco resort, your people are an all-inclusive, like, beach vacation place, but I think very specific type of northern Michigan as a place where people can come and stay, experience, go on excursions, but also have like a citizen science component. So they're learning about this area as well. So they leave not only refreshed, hopefully they can hear their own thoughts again, because it is peaceful here, but then they leave armed with some knowledge they maybe didn't have before, and they can take that back home with them. And that is a profitable business, need to recall. So I know when we're looking at, some of the stuff on the water that is currently being discussed, there's so many options, so many ideas that don't involve a factory that may just cause more pollution. And
in South America, that's those eco-friendly places that you go to the resort, everything's all inclusive, but that's like 7 days of excursions and all of that's included, and then you just go away with a piece of that land.
And all the areas around it are impoverished. So we studied that in my class too, and cruising is the second leading cause of pollution and detriment to native cultures.
Like cruises,
how we got low air travel. And if you've ever been to, like, on our honeymoon, we went to we did the whole cruise thing. We went to a bunch of islands, and I noticed, like, shouldn't the whole place be lifted up, because this place is bringing in so much money, but it's not shared. It's the people, planet, profit. Like, what order are we going in? If our community has sheets over their windows because they can't afford to build shutters or have screens or whatever, like, that's a problem. And if indigenous and artisans are not able to maintain their quality of life through their art and what they are here for on this planet, if it's been trampled by commercialism, then that's not helpful either. Kind of just like looking where people, with just a broader view, a different perspective, and looking at other places in the world to see how they do things. I think a lot of times we think, like, oh, we look around the state for ideas, but, like,
so global.
Sweden has a lot of great ideas. Iceland has, but many great ideas for dark sky related stuff. I'm talking with people and they ask me about development, and, like, there are a lot of great ideas out there. We don't really need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to expand our research boundaries.
Absolutely. I agree fully.
Option
Thank you for that.
is
When it comes to Rockport specifically, what is it that you love about it?
oh my gosh, so many things. I don't really know. I feel like I could live there. I don't know why. Taken a lot of solo hikes there. I think it's just so unique. So you've got Lake Huron right on the edge, and that is a diverse experience. You go from the deep water port on the south end where you can fish big rock, the iconic rock pile, which is actually a waste pile. That rock wasn't good for their operation anymore. They just left it. It's been threatened to be sold off for gravel like companies, and people have said, we got to leave it. So thankfully it's still there. But then you go up the coast and there are some hidden sandy beaches. It's a little hard to get to, but that is okay. Mm-hmm. We don't need to be able to drive a car and like roll out onto the beach all the time. Sometimes that's a detriment to nature and what we're trying to preserve. So I like that there are really unique places that are hard to get to. Further up, there's the old ghost village of Bell, and that has some artifacts that are really interesting to experience. And then another really awesome secluded sandy beach that has a shipwreck right off the coast. Yeah. So cool. That's just talking about the coastline. Trails are really rugged, and I think that's beautiful. Everything needs to be overly groomed, really commercialized. There's still hunting allowed there, and hunting is a part of my family. I'm not a huge hunter, but understand, feeding your family from the land, and that is still allowed there. They also have a lot of plant species, but in the Besser Bell area, they have one of the last remaining stands of virgin white pine in the state. A lot of people don't know that it's here. Little old Alpena. Sinkholes. I'm just enamored with sinkholes, and the fossils are just really fascinating. And every time I go, it's like I'm going for the first time. I experience something different. One of the last times I went out, there was a fox on the side of the trail. You know what you're going to encounter there. And it can be peaceful and beautiful and quiet, or it can be rugged. And I like to go out there, taking on winter solstice. And one year I went, the wind was just really whipping and like sandblasting my face off and exfoliating. It was like, this is it. This is nature. This is like, it's beauty and boldness. And you can find that all on that property.
Absolutely. It's good to get out of the comfort zone once in a while and really feel nature. It really humbles you and gives you a sense of like,
wasn't good.
There's so much more to what's happening here. So diving into a little bit of the development that's happening out there, and just for those of you who don't know, what is being planned for out there is such things as a ranger station, a visitor station, a maintenance building, several toilet places, parking lots everywhere, 100 RV sites, 8 mini cabins, 55 rustic campsites, 6 backcountry sites, hiking, biking, equestrian trails, dark sky observatory, repairs to the pier and boat launch. Not going to lie, some of this sounds pretty impressive. However, knowing that Rockport is underutilized, what improvements or developments do you find beneficial
really
could help bring a little more access and awareness to the park?
I think what comes to mind is Bill's history with just trying to get some amenities or some improvements at the park in the early days. So Rockport is Michigan's 100th state park. And once it was designated, all attention went to Belle Isle, which that park deserved to be refurbished as well. But Rockport was not really given much of a budget of any sort. It's had a ranger here and there, but it's largely been left unattended. They have my former partner, Jermaine, and our office started to look at, I needed help. My job is to promote this, but people also need to be safe when they go there. So what are some of the low hanging fruit? And one of them was getting just the trails mapped. Yeah. And manager at the time, I had spoken to him about it, and there was a story about how it had tried to been done 3 times, and then the tapes got lost, and there was this unit thing that got crushed that was supposed to map the trails, and so the full and former partner just went out on a bike in Strava and they started to put trail maps together. And then that there us create something else that brought awareness to the park in a way that respected the park. And that was the Rockport Rugged Triathlon. This is 94% of the participants were from outside of the area, and a lot were from outside of the state. People were interested. Wow. They found it really like a cool race in a really amazing location. It was for a while, it was part of the Xterra, which is a pretty well-known development. And we were looking at it being a regional qualifier event. And that almost didn't happen because the supervisor we were working with at the time from the DNR gave us the right paperwork to fill out. So 3 days before the race, people are in town. The race management company was setting up, and we were told you can't do it. But this person had been to every one of our meetings. So it was a little frustrating. Fortunately, it worked out, but there's been time after time where it seems like Rockport is just peanut whatever. And we find that with other DNR funded things, like we just don't get as much money as other parts of the state to improve our infrastructure. So getting the trails mapped was huge. Just finally changed out the plastic picnic tables that the porcupines were eating, which I kept thinking like that's got to be like an environmental problem for them. Like again, people, planet, profit. And if the porcupines are eating this plastic, that can't be good for them. And they would just take the eaten pieces off and put more plastic on. Well, they're metal now. Okay. So thankfully, raised money for the park. So they were able to give them a first trash can, which is a bear-proof trash can. So it's kind of like heavy duty, but for years it didn't have anybody trying to help it. It was like, I'm an orphan child, and you've come across it and you're like, do you need some warm clothes? Do you need some nutritious food? Like, what can we do for you? And then things started to get a little bit better in regard to the relationship with the DNR. Like years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, we had call it something different, but like a visioning session where the DNR comes in and they ask the community, what do you want to see here? And there were all sorts of ideas for better access or amenities for dark sky viewing. That is the number one activity that happens out there besides fishing. Is there a appropriate spot right now? There are several appropriate spots, and the most recent plan is not the most appropriate. Cabins, but cabins that are not just acted like a cabin in the woods, cabins that have viewing roofs so that you can go and like really have a unique experience. Some bathroom facilities would be nice. Problem is the porcupines were eating one of the vault toilets, the walls around the vault toilet. So it's like amazing. If we're going to have a human footprint here, we need to think about like how can it be in harmony with what is already happening out here? Because it is wild, and that's not a bad thing. Is it handicap accessible out there? And some places, it would be wonderful to have. I know originally started to put backcountry sites in because that was already they were already set up. And the reason they weren't allowed to open to the public is because they were still working on a handicap accessible site. And then but the stop meeting. There is a location where there can be more accessibility for the rock quarry if that were made part of the plan. There's a lot of opportunity for more accessibility without overdoing it, without paving everything, without taking a lot of trees down, without other parts compromising the activities that can already take place there. I think maybe some pier repair would be okay. Yeah, trailsman. That part is like no one has called a company to come in and do an estimate on how much it would cost to repair the pier, and it just keeps deteriorating, which is really sad. So, I mean, it's a great swimming hole. It should be, able to jump off that pier, be like out of the water and be safe. And so hopefully, and if what they are proposing, which is not what happened, like none of what they had in the recent plan really harkens back to what I witnessed. We were attending that kind of visioning session 5 or so years ago, whenever it was happening. So this big plan is something else. Okay, because I've heard that it is a plan from kind of 12 years ago. Yeah. So I hadn't heard about it 5 years ago. So my understanding is that the last time, which wasn't 15 years ago, they updated or more recent history than that. I don't remember if it was like right after COVID or before COVID.
Okay.
And the plan that came out most recently had some things in it that were not even discussed at the most recent session. So that was kind of confusing. Like the also developed campground was not something that the community discussed or asked for or wanted. Not to say that Alpena doesn't deserve something like that, but is that really people, planet, profit? Is that really the best place for it? And the argument that I've been given when I ask that is, well, Petoskey has a park right on the water. Tawas has a RV park right on the water. Can we expand our viewing search area and look at taking what are the values of this property and how to mindfully develop it?
Yeah.
These things can go elsewhere. They don't, they don't need to go right here. Hunting would still be allowed in this most recent plan. So how are they? There's no plan for safety. If more people are coming and staying, more people are going to be using the trails. It is planned to do another freeway on the west side of the park, pedestrian trails and mountain bike trails, and I think a pump track or something like that, which would be really great. A great use of some of that area of the property, because that's like two pieces of bread on the side of that are primitive areas that can't be developed and shouldn't be trampled upon because they protect things. So, and that's really the only place that is left for hunting and some other obscure areas. So if we're trying to develop this to bring more people there, of course, and the night via RV camping, the plan where people are going to be using the trails, what is the safety plan for having hunters also be out there? Hunters are usually pretty mindful and safe, but people go off trail all the time. So with that part really worries me. And it didn't seem that there was valid, or I wouldn't say valid, there was no answer for how that was going to be managed.
I mean, you're touching on it now, but what other threats do you see? If this scale, I think, what is it, 4,200 acres of land there, and they're proposing taking over about 2,500 acres?
Yeah.
What do you see as the threats?
It's not going to be the same park. So we're changing the identity. It's like, no shame in this, so I don't want it to be taken the wrong way, but when someone has like facial reconstruction for any reason, it may change the way they look. But was that necessary for this property to go? Every time we do something like this, it changes it a little bit. Even adding cabins to spend the night in, even if they were really, really amazing and had hot tubs where you could look at the stars and whatever, that would be awesome. But it changes the land and it changes the way it's used. It changes standing. The people that are coming there are going to interact with it in a different way.
Yeah.
And that means something. I don't also see a lot of times COVID doing things just for the sake of bringing in money when parks are not built to bring in money. They're there because we need them as humans.
Preservation.
Yeah, and preserving our environmental assets. So I kind of tend to go towards I think development is really interesting to study. And I think that when we think outside of the box and get something really neat and cool, if it is well thought out, there's still a way that it melds with the environment. It has a small footprint, right on like that. But if we're just trying to plop something in because it's working at another park, is that really maintaining the integrity of the park? And is that being respectful to the identity of the park? With all that is proposed, it would be a different park. We would have to talk about it differently when we're promoting it. It wouldn't be a place where you can just go and find your explorer spirit. It would be different, and don't have a say in that. Whatever the DNR wants to do, that is what they're going to do. But are part of our office that trail that development and other sustainable tourism development. This isn't that.
Right. I mean, this is essentially part of your job would be to be okay with this, and
it kind of hurts my heart a little bit. Great use saving area that I keep going back to right now is that there's no money behind it. And they're looking, I don't know, they say they're looking for investment, but protect that'll happen or not, who knows, left for Also, it was clear when they were discussing the proposed RV park during to bring this meeting I went to where it was unveiled. Unfortunately, I got the impression that the folks that designed this plan, like it's a great plan. In terms of development, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But they were not aware of what the community had asked for at the last thing within, 5 years ago. Dark sky stuff was almost like an add-on, and it was very limited when that should really be like
A highlight.
one of the highlights. Yeah. Multiple observation points. Different areas throughout the park give you different views.
You go into what a dark sky preserve is in case you don't actually know what
it is something. It's not just a place that's dark. Theme park. So I think this was like 2015 or so. I had been informed by the Friends group of Rockport that they had been trying to get this designation, and Thompson's Harbor State Park to the north and Negwagon to the south were also trying to get dark sky designation. They had taken light readings, and because of our insulated area from bigger metro areas, we don't have a lot of light pollution. It's all basically from Alpena. And 60 miles across the way is Canada. You've got nothing but darkness across the lake. So it's a really great spot. The light readings here are even better than the headlands. Just told by the DNR that they would never, we could go for international dark sky status, but that has to come with programming at the park. And I was told that the DNR didn't want to fund that. They didn't want that rigmarole. In order to get the designations, Peter Patalia, the late Representative Peter Patalia, had to be engaged to write a bill and introduce it to the Michigan legislature and have it voted on to get official designations for these 3 parks. That took years. And when I got involved, the Friends groups had already been trying, and the paperwork kept getting lost. And it happened while I was involved too. Like I went to the county commissioners, I went to the city, and I had a proclamation, and I had meetings to talk about, the benefit, the value, the significance of preserving this land as a dark sky park, the importance of Alpena being mindful, the city being mindful of their light output. And there are dark sky lighting ordinances that are really easy to implement. And I think they're looking at some of those now. The light fixtures they put on the road don't really, at the time, we didn't have to do anything different. It's just if we decided to change out a light fixture, make sure it doesn't point up into the heavens or out where it didn't need to go. It was like focused where it needed to be. And then that would also help preserve our light readings. I was involved. The paperwork got lost again, somewhere between the DNR's office and Peter Patalia's office. It was really serendipitous. Just, some people come into your lives and you have no idea why. And then it leads to something that's like, oh my goodness, exactly the person that we needed. So I was introduced to a lobbyist through someone that was helping the under the radar guys at the time. And she had a connection with Alpena. She hadn't lived here, but she had a connection. And she said, I will do anything for this town. And so she worked really hard, went knocking on doors, and eventually actually had to follow the paperwork through to make sure it wouldn't get lost.
Oh.
It was just, I don't know what happens in Lansing, but anyway, with her help, Clear was able to finally get it introduced and voted on to secure the designations. And I think those were ultimately got the stamp of approval in 2016. So that means they have really low light pollution levels, pressure. There's some form of oaksing that happens. So like the Meteors and S'mores events that our office helped the Friends group with, and the DNR would bring lanterns out, and we usually bought s'mores the last. We started at the one at Rockport. The first one I was involved in had maybe like 60 people that came, and the last one that we did had 500.
Wow.
So that was mostly just local people. EOI's Comet was going through. The place was loaded. Points. We took our kids and we sat in the back of the truck and just watched it for a little bit because it was so amazing. We did yoga on the pier. I still remember meteor going right across our heads when we were done in Shavasana in this. I thought it was like this far from my face, but everybody's like, it was not that close. That's impossible. Well, it seemed like it was. That this was like really fun programs that introduce people not only to the park, but just the idea of how important and special it is to be able to see the night sky.
Yeah.
When some people around the world can't. And we have it right here every day. And it doesn't seem like a big deal for those of us that see it every day, but for others, it's amazing. People travel here with their extremely expensive telescopes to get a better view of the planets. I was able to see Saturn's rings through one of these telescopes for the first time. You can see galaxies. It's just amazing. And a lot of work went into getting the designations and getting them in place. And now Negwegon, Rockport, and Thompson's Harbor all have these designations. So someone can come to Alpena and check out 3 different experiences. Harbor has sand dunes. A lot of people don't think we have sand dunes on the side of the state, but right up do, and that is a whole different experience. I went out there with it on and designation file from Pure Michigan to do a video. We did a video explaining guys just for Pure Michigan, and this group's experience out there was totally different than the experience I had at Rockport. And at Negwegon, it's different yet because of just the way that the land is different. And that is, I guess, a long answer for what a dark sky park is.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think that it's one of our biggest assets on this side of the state and maybe in the country. I mean, in Wyoming, Idaho, and in the really low lead areas, and the middle of the United States, of course, they have it as well. But when you look at the map of the light pollution everywhere on the planet, it's being taken over globally. And I just feel like here on the Great Lakes that this is just something that is irreplaceable. And once you start, putting too many lights out and just too much involvement happens, that goes away. And it's
hard to take it back.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Can't roll it back once it's been out there.
I think it's the awareness that we need to have that, hey, when we're talking natural resources, it's not just the lakes, it's not just the sinkholes, it's not just the beautiful pine trees and whatnot.
The whole story.
It's the whole story. And I think that's our greatest asset. And I really, really think that we really need to lean into that when we look into development. And there's a thing that's said around Alpena quite a bit. We don't want to be Traverse City. I get that. I understand what they mean by that. But
there's so many other things. We should be the best just version of Alpena that we should be.
Yeah. Let's stop the comparison. Yeah. Like you said, use the broader spectrum of what's globally happening and how to preserve that sort of thing and how to, make the profit but preserve the people and the property as we go through that. And I think, as we move into a new era of humanity,
80 years,
a connection to nature needs to be something that we really hone in. And I think Alpena is in a unique position to really dive into that deep. And we're seeing development happening right now on all sorts of levels. And I think it's inevitable and I think it's necessary. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. People want a little more space. I get it. But let's do it in a way that preserves what we have going on. And dark sky, I mean, like you said, I'm right here in Alpena and I can still see the sky very well. Yes, when I look towards the lights, yes, it's a lot different. But when I look towards the other way, it's beautiful. And so I'm right here at the precipice of like, hey, it can either be like that or it can be like this. So let's lean that way a little.
I want to mention too, there's so many studies that have been done now about how light 24/7 is affecting not only human circadian rhythms, only to the nocturnal animals. They can't hunt like they normally do.
Yeah.
It's disrupting the lives of a lot of creatures. And I don't think that when someone's like, oh, we got to light this part of my driveway because, just in case, for what reason, think about it a little bit more. Better than the super bright LEDs put out a blue spectrum light that is really not good for human health. It causes glare blindness when you're driving. The super bright LEDs and headlight designate have it in your home. It can be really good for crafts, or if you're I find as I'm getting older, I really need light to see. I have reading glasses now and out dark, I got to turn on a light. But Thompson's, we're kind of in an area where it's just because the technology can doesn't mean that we should. And that is it's not just people that it's either benefiting or harming, it's also everything out there. And I think, most of us have had some sort of movie we watched in grade school where it was like, oh, we stepped on the butterfly and what, how does that affect the rest of whatever? It totally happens all the time now. So it's something to be mindful of. And if you're a type of person that just doesn't care about that, that is fine. But we all have to be respectful of, the reality that we live in. And sometimes it might mean we don't need an RV park at Rockport.
I think that might mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well said. Something that I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast is to get some opinions about where we're heading, like in the long term. So I think math's been forgotten in our development, and as we move so fast paced and towards change and who we want to become, I think that we've forgotten to take the 7 generation view. Started looks like on down the road. And any place that develops correctly has that 7 generation view, and this is something that
Back.
as part of Native American culture. It's something that I think needs to be resurrected into modern day society because I don't think we're really paying attention to how fast things are developing. So, with that being said, and what is your 7 generation or even 50 years into the future idea of what should happen around Alpena and in Northeast Michigan, like in general? Because Alpena is unique because it has a little more amenities and that sort of thing. But if you're looking all the way from Mackinac down to Saginaw in this northeastern region, I think it's a lot of, we should be looking at it as one big sort of understanding of what the 7 generation view is. So what would your insight be on that 7 generation view? Respect.
That's really interesting.
And how
Because I live in, talking before we were taping, I live in my
the
family homestead farm now
through
with the kids and my great grandpa and great grandmother
of
house and farmed it. My grandpa was part of, in addition to doing that, he was part of Rural Electric Cooperative and even, had, you can Google his testimony before Congress. I think it was like in the 50s in Washington, D.C. He would go around to other farmers in the area and talking about electricity, like one of the most incredible inventions of that time. And they were afraid. They didn't want the government having access to their land. They didn't trust it. And my grandfather would talk about the benefits and how this can help make things more efficient, less stress on your body. It's a thing when people switched from drawn plow to a tractor and how much more you can do with that. Looking back from how my grandparents and my great aunts and uncles lived and worked on the farm to what my children are now learning and doing on the farm is really different. And looking at all of the development, the inventions, just the way we live and how that has changed over those multiple generations, it's just really has given me just a lot of interesting things to ponder, really. This come through with fiber optic internet access, which will give people who have been isolated from that the ability to go online now. And when we think about it, it's like, well, it's every day. Like, can't you already do that? And some people can't because the expense is too great or they're in a dead zone. Like our house was in a dead zone. Nobody came down our road with it all the way. So when we first moved in, it was home, kind of strange. But as I look at the farm for the next 5 generations, whatever I do to it now, I'm thinking of okay, doing this with this barn, or this has always been a problem every year. There's this part of the field that's always turning into this, that, or the other muddy mess. What could we plant there so it doesn't have to be a hazard for when we're trying to plant corn or something? Maybe there's native rice that could be replanted in this wet area. So it's given me a lot of perspective on just how much brain power that takes to have that long-term view of things, not just how is it going to benefit me right now. It's the easiest way. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Like, what do I need to be happy right now? What do I need here to be comfortable right now? I don't need thinking about right now. I know all the areas that are free of recent Roundup spraying. So I know that I can harvest, natural herbs that are growing and medicinal stuff from that area and make tinctures for like cuts and things. But I'm not going to do it from over here because I know that has been sprayed within the last 30 years. So there's a lot of things that factor into that, to explaining kind of that view. In terms of like community development, a lot of people complain like, oh, people just don't want change. And that's not it at all. They want more information, and they want to know that bad decisions made in the past are not going to continue to be made for future generations. They want more knowledge. They want more educated approaches to things. It's not just, oh, we're afraid of change. It's like, we've seen change not go well. We would like forward and intelligent change. And there are ways I think new technologies can plug into that. But there's always some sort of other thing on the back end that needs to be considered. Like, electric cars are great. Where does that energy get made to power the electric cars? We had one person that was going to do a whole article, a whole story, and this was a couple years ago. So we had one charging station in Alpena, and we had to kind of say, like, we would love to be a part of this, but right now we're just not, our infrastructure isn't there yet. And now Scale Electric and Gas has a lot more charging stations around. I've seen them more at gas stations and stuff. But those types of things, like technology and advancements, are really wonderful. But like, what is the back end of that the average person isn't aware of? And they might be signing off on something that they think is great, but they don't know like what is going to have to happen to make that continue moving forward. So in the 7th-generation view of things, mother a lot by looking at the past 7 generations of advancements and how that impacted people, like farmers not wanting electricity because they didn't want government interference on their land and they thought it was going to harm them, to, well, now it's not a big deal at all. There are still things like switching from incandescent, you can't buy the light bulbs anymore. Now you are being forced to buy LEDs. And a lot of the people don't know about the blue spectrum light, and just so much that could be boiled down for people who don't want a dissertation on the whole thing, but want to be just a little bit more informed so that they know that, yes, this is a good, forward moving, safe change for future generations. So like
Sucking it up, just going out like maybe 50, 70 years, and you're looking back at Alpena, what would you think would be the number one thing that you'd want to see changed here?
Back, my 50-year hope is that our environment that we might share, that we're allowed to live on, within, around, looking at been preserved, and we understand why that's important. I think there is a lot of energy that is spent by certain groups of people begging and begging just to just have some courtesy for the land. And there are other groups that are like, absolutely not. This is making me $1 million. So, or 12 million or whatever. So how can we get to that point where we understand the development that we've had, go on regretful of what has happened? There will be unknowns, of course, but 50 years from now, I hope that as a species, we all understand that nobody can't be separated from nature. We are part of it and we are stewards of it. It's not a never ending resource to be mined and pilfered for whatever new technology. Like, there's sometimes only so much of it. And I hope that we can get to a point where it's not constant consumerism of bigger, better, faster, stronger all the time. And I also hope that we can be a little bit more understanding about slowing down a little bit. It's what understanding that we don't need all this stuff that we might be told we need. And I'm in marketing, so marketing is getting very, very sophisticated, and it's altering people's brain chemistry, and that can be a whole nother discussion. People have no idea. The ease that is part of what separates people from the land too is it takes a lot of work to preserve, and it takes a lot of work to have boundaries within yourself to say, like, I don't need all of this, or I don't need to do this. It's fine. It's fine how it is. I don't need to pave through this area, and a dirt trail that absorbs water is fine. And stuff like that.
Well said. So using the knowledge of the past to preserve what we
Our
have
future, yeah.
into the future. I think that's a great summary of what I believe we should be looking into as well. Slowing down, do we need all this? Yes, technology is great and it's helpful.
And
We need some spaces left on the planet where we can reconnect as well. And this is, I think, one of them. So,
now,
Mary Beth, thank you for being here today.
going to continue.
Want to get a hold of you or contact you for any other kind of information, would you be willing to share that?
Yeah, the easiest way is my email for work, which is marybeth@visitalpena.com.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We would
Well, thank you for joining us here at Harbor Spaces. We hope today's conversation brought you inspiration, reflection, and a deeper sense of connection. If you enjoyed this episode, we invite you to like, share, subscribe, or leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts or tell us what you'd love to see in the future. Remember, we're building this space together. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for engaging in meaningful conversation. Thank you for joining us in the spirit of cooperation and collaboration. Go out and do good in the world. Be kind. Lift others up. Help create spaces where deep connections can thrive. And join us again next time here on Harbor Spaces.